But if you look carefully, you'll see some kind of silvery looking fish. But did you see another fish that was a different color? If you look carefully, oh, there's one kind of swimming in the back there. Every now and then in the kelp forest, you might see an animal that stands out and apart from the other ones. Instead of being that silvery color, like the ones that you see right here, it might be a bright orange. And that bright orange color, if you see one swimming behind me, point to it and call it out, because that fish is the Garibaldi. And the Garibaldi is a state marine fish of California, and they're protected in our waters here. But we do have a couple of them hiding in blue caverns, so keep your eyes open if you see a bright orange fish anywhere in the screen. That is the Garibaldi. But if you look at this kelp forest habitat, you'll notice there's lots of greens, and all that kelp actually provides a nice place for animals to hide out and camouflage. Now, camouflage is when their colors are helping them to blend in with their environment. But also the behaviors of these animals are also helping them to camouflage, because some will actually hang out so that they're right in the blades and kind of at an angle, living in the kelp. I don't know that we're going to have a chance to see any very closely doing that now, but it's definitely something to keep your eyes open for as we explore and look at look at these smaller fish down here. Did you notice those before? Maybe I've been standing in front of them. These are little fish called senoritas. And these fish will actually help clean off things from the other fish. They're small little feeders that also help keep clean some of the larger fish that are also in the exhibit. But let's go ahead and take a little break and play a little game. And so let's do a game, and we're going to have a puzzle of an animal that can be found in the kelp forest. I don't see him right now in our kelp forest, but let's look for this animal. And we're going to provide this puzzle. We're going to give you a few missing pieces. We're going to take away tile by tile, see if you can figure out what kind of animal it is. And if you know what it is, shout it out, or even better, type it in the comments below, and we'll see if we can find someone who can identify this animal. So I'm going to step to the side so we can see what gray animal can be found in the kelp forest. All right, so we revealed a few of the pictures here. Do you recognize what type of animal it is? We haven't seen it yet today, but there's a chance we could see it if we were looking carefully and they go in front of our camera. But what kind of animal do you think this is? If you have an idea, shout it out to someone in the room or tell a friend that might be next to you. And again, you can comment down below. Any idea? You've got that gray coloration, but then they've got these funny little markings on their bodies. They've got these markings here, and they've got, these triangles coming down from the underside of their body as well as the top. And there's another triangle down there, so it looks like those are fins. What animal looks like it has a long body shape and some fins on the bottom and fins on the top? What animal do you think that is? I'm going to have my friends in the studio reveal a few more slides of this animal. Ah, you knew what that animal was, didn't you? Yeah, this right here is a shark. But what kind of shark is it? This is called a leopard shark, and because of the leopard sort of print that he has on his body. So the leopard shark is a beautiful animal. You can see, what does the shark use to breathe? Sharks are a little bit different than people, but notice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little gill slits on the side of their body. So they use those gill slits to help them breathe as they swim through the kelp forest. And I also have some shark teeth. If you want to get an idea of what this animal looks like, and you wonder about what their teeth might look like, I actually have a model of some shark teeth. These are very similar to the teeth that you would find inside a leopard shark's mouth. I'm going to see if I can get a better view. Give it a second to focus here. But do you see those little tiny teeth at the bottom? So right where my finger is there, let's see, maybe I can pull out a little bit more. But their teeth are actually very, very small. You can kind of see how their teeth are up there. Very small for eating very small food. Can you think of any small food that a leopard shark might want to eat? Yeah, they might like to eat small fish and shrimp and small things like that. So not really large animals. In fact, our divers here at the aquarium feed our leopard sharks by hand. So they're kind of like, I've heard they're kind of like puppies. So anyway, those are the leopard sharks and the leopard shark teeth. But now that we've looked at some animals in the kelp forest, let's go ahead and switch to a different type of habitat we showcase here at the aquarium, the coral reef habitat. Now, when I say coral reef, what do you think it is that makes up a coral reef habitat? Remember, the kelp forest was made of kelp. What do you think makes a coral reef? Corals, of course. But what are corals? Do you know what a coral is? Is it a plant or is it an animal? We have some corals here. So we also have some fish here. So what do you think? Are corals plants or are they animals? They have all the bright colors of beautiful flowers that are plants, but corals are actually animals. And corals that make the reefs, and here's an example of our coral reef, our tropical reef habitat here at the aquarium. Well, corals actually have, there's different kinds of corals, but the ones that have the hard, stony skeletons make up the coral reef, and they're all animals. In fact, I'm going to show you a little bit closer right now. I know we just came away from our camera, but I'm going to bring this back again to show you what a coral reef looks like, or what a coral looks like, I should say. If you look really carefully at this dried out coral, now obviously this is not alive and it's not as bright and colorful as what you saw on the screen, but all these individual little holes that you see are where coral animals called polyps used to live. And the coral animals, when they all live together, they build this coral reef that can be quite large. It can take a long time for coral to grow. It might take even a year for coral to grow an inch. But as they grow, they create a living habitat for animals and shelter and food for animals around them. So let's go back to our live feed from the aquarium and look at the animals in our coral reef habitat here. So you can see there's a lot of different kinds of fish. Do you see a lot of different colors? How does it look different from the kelp forest habitat? Ooh, this is an animal we didn't see before. What animal is that? Yeah, it's a stingray. Oh, what one is that? You guys recognize these animals? Yeah, we've got some more sharks in here. Now, these are not leopard sharks. Remember, leopard sharks live in kelp forests, which are in much colder water. But the coral reefs have much warmer water, but they also have a lot of diversity. And so looking at these coral reefs, these are actually animals that have grown with their hard, stony skeletons building these big, strong reefs. But then we also have other types of corals that are soft and that move back and forth with the water a little bit. But all of the coral that you see in this particular exhibit here, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. It's actually not real. So all of this stuff right here is artificial coral, because look at how much of it there is. If we were to take this much coral out from its natural habitat and try to use it for our exhibit, we would probably destroy that ecosystem. We would really harm all the animals that depend on that coral for it to be their home and their source of life. So down here, oh, there's another shark down there. And let's see, oh, there's another one right there, another cool ray. And actually, I want to take just a second for you guys to look at some of the animals. What are some differences that you notice? So what about this one? What's funny is that this one looks like it's kind of small compared to this one right here. But that animal right there, that fish, is actually kind of far away from our camera right now. So he looks much smaller. But that animal is called a Queensland grouper. And he can actually grow to be quite large, about the size of a Volkswagen Bug, a very large car. And so that animal looks small now. He looks like he could fit in my hand. But he's actually one of our most fascinating animals here in our coral reef habitat. Now also look at this shark right here. This is called a zebra shark. Now, it might not look so much like a zebra to you, but when it was born and it hatched out of its egg, yes, sharks can actually lay eggs. It actually had black and white stripes that look like the stripes of a zebra. And then as that shark matures, you can kind of see the areas where there used to be some stripes, but then they turn into spots. And instead of having black and white stripes, they fade into spots. And we still call them zebra sharks, although where they're commonly found in Australia, sometimes they do call them leopard sharks. But it's very different from the leopard shark that we looked at, isn't it? All right, so here's another view of another coral reef habitat that we have at the aquarium. And look at all these corals. So these are different colors. And the reason that they have different colors is because of a special algae that lives inside of them called zooxanthellae. And that algae gives them their color, and it also provides food for the coral polyp animals to live off of. But look at how much it creates a habitat for all of these brightly colored fish in here. Do you see any special patterns or any special colors as you look at these different fish? What kind of differences do you see? Are they all the same color? Do they all have the patterns? Are they all the same size or shape? Look even at the shape of their tails. Do you notice any fish that have different tail shapes from other fish? What about those little yellow ones that are darting around in the back? Look at their forked shaped tails. And now are those very triangular shaped tails. Now if you look at these other fish, those dark ones, see how different their tail shape is? Or even that other yellow fish, that rabbit fish. So animals have different types of fins, different types of shapes of their tails, and different even mouths. Look at where the mouths are on some of these animals. In fact, what about the stingray? Where is the mouth of the stingray? It's kind of hard to tell. It's actually on the underside of his body. As he swims by, maybe we'll get lucky and see another view of that animal. Now, if you've ever wondered about the mouth of a stingray, we also have some stingray teeth I can show you. So over here on my camera, these are what stingray teeth look like. Very different from the shark teeth we were looking at, very different from our teeth. And a lot of times people say, oh, it looks a lot like a snake. And while their teeth do look like snake skin, these are not scales. Those are actually their teeth. So their teeth grow together nice and flat and create a nice flat, hard crushing surface that can be used for things with hard shells. Can you think of any animals that have hard shells? Especially animals that live on the bottom. Since the mouth of the stingray is on the bottom of its body, it can be a lot easier for this animal to eat food that's living on the bottom of the ocean with its mouth on the underside of its body. And so these right here are big teeth, great for cracking open hard shell things like clams and crabs and things that might be crawling, what we call invertebrates, animals without backbones, living on the bottom of the ocean. So that's what these teeth are like. That's what stingray teeth look like. So let's go ahead and back into our studio again and look at these beautiful, brightly colored corals. Think about the differences between now the coral reef and the kelp. Can you think of any differences? What did you notice? So let's go back again to a coral reef habitat, looking at the fish that are swimming in there. And if you were to compare it to the kelp forest, what do you notice? Take a minute just to look at these fish. Some of them even have shapes on them. Do you see any with shapes? Oh, notice how they all started swimming one direction. Something must have been happening that maybe they wondered if it was time to eat. But let's look. There was a fish that had a square on its side. See if you can find a fish that has a pink square right on its side. Do you see it? It's perfect timing. It was right up in the middle of the screen. So some of these fish, even in the same species, can have different markings. Now that particular fish is called a square spot anthias, and the males have the squares, whereas the females do not. And that's very common that different types of fish, whether they're male or female, will look a little bit different from each other. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference, but sometimes you can see difference. So what we're looking at here can be a lot of different types of males and females. And one thing that's interesting with fish is that some fish have the ability to change. And they can start off life as a male and then later turn into a female, or start off life as a female and later turn into a male. And one of the examples of those is actually many of these anthias here. Oh, but this one right here is, you've probably heard this fish. Do you know what fish this is? Yeah, you do. It's a clownfish. So the clownfish here actually starts off life as a male and then can turn into a female. It's kind of interesting. Now, the opposite of that is true of an animal that's found in the kelp forest that we refer to as the California sheephead. Now, the sheephead is a fish that starts off as a female with this one. So you can see it does have some kind of white on the underside. Actually, this is a little bit more like a male coloring with a white on the underside, dark face here, and then kind of a fading color, a little bit darker in the back. So this one looks kind of almost like it's in between. Whereas the females tend to be very much more of this color all throughout. And there's some marking differences, but the males will get this big bump on their head too, and they get these very, very big mouths. In fact, you can even see some of the teeth sticking out of this one right here. So they have teeth that are great for cracking open other hard shell things like urchins. And so I actually have, do you know what an urchin looks like? Maybe we can pull up a picture of what an urchin looks like. I'll put my friend James to work here. And right here we have a purple sea urchin sitting on some, what is this? Kelp, that's right. So urchins love to eat kelp. So if you look at an urchin, you'll notice they have all these sharp purple spines all over their bodies. Well, where do you think their mouth is? I said they're eating kelp. So how do you think an animal like that looks like a big crazy pokey ball is able to eat something like this? Well, where do you think its mouth is? It's on top of the kelp, so maybe the mouth is on the underside. And that's exactly where it is. So they actually have 5 teeth that all come together to help them eat the kelp on the underside of their body. And I can show you what an urchin looks like without its spines. Maybe you've seen one of these shapes before and you thought, oh, it's a seashell. Well, this is actually what we call the test, or like the shell, of an urchin. And this is the top of his body here. This is what the underside looks like. But each one of these little circles that you see is a little bump, and that's where one of those long purple spines used to be attached. And so if you look, you'll see that they have rows of these spines. They also have some smaller ones, and there's also some little tiny holes inside. I don't know if you'll be able to see them. I can try. Let it adjust. Yeah. You guys see those little tiny holes in there? So these little tiny things between those big purple bumps, those are holes where they have their tube feet. So they have actual feet on the underside and the top side of their body that they use, believe it or not, for breathing. So they can breathe with their feet, and they're covered in feet all over the top and the bottom of their body. But this is where their mouth would be. So if you ever see something like that on a beach somewhere, that is what we call a test of a sea urchin. So again, sea urchins are really important animals, and we see a lot of them here in Southern California because of the kelp forest that we have in Southern California. Unfortunately, they can eat a lot of kelp. And so if these urchins are left to eat all this kelp, our kelp is going to float away and create what we call urchin barrens. But fortunately, there's also an animal called the Southern California sea otter, or the southern otter, and it can eat urchins. So they eat so many purple sea urchins sometimes that their teeth actually turn purple. Aren't they cute? So these sea otters, as long as they're swimming out in the kelp forest, they can help keep the otter, or they can keep the urchin populations in check so that our kelp forest can stay nice and full and support a lot of diversity and a lot of life. So these are cute sea otters. And there's one that's eating clam. In case you were wondering what that yellow thing is by its face, that's a piece of clam. Clam is what sea otters love to eat on the inside. They don't eat the hard shell, but they crack it open using another thing like a stone or rock. And then, and then we'll break it open. So here we actually have video of one of our sea otters. Look at how they can come out of the water. So they don't need to stay in the water all the time because they've got cute little paws and webbed flippers in the back that they can use to crawl up out of the water and walk around on land. And then they get back in the water, and you may see them floating on their backs. They're really good at swimming on their backs and fluffing up all that fur that they have to help them stay nice and warm, since they don't have blubber like other animals do. And so if you have anything that you want to share, we've only got about 1 minute left. But if you have any comments, you can put them down below. And I would just like to thank you for joining us here for our Aquarium Education On Live. And a question was asked, how deep do they swim? Now, believe it or not, sea otters are not as deep diving as you might think. And I'm hoping that someone can give me the exact, about 100 feet. So it's actually fairly deep, but they don't hold their breath for a very long time. So they might be underwater for maybe 20, about 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Sorry, I'm getting my feedback from my help in the studio here. And so, yes, they can swim fairly deep, but they don't hold their breath for very long. So not like some of the other animals we have at the aquarium that can hold their breath for, like a sea turtle, about 4 or 5 minutes. So if there are any other comments, sorry, it took us a while to get our comment section working now, but hopefully you're able to contribute. How long do sharks live? So that's actually something we're still learning about. There could be some sharks that live as long as maybe even 70 years. But we're still learning. So not necessarily as long as a whale or dolphin, but they can actually live a good length of time. It probably depends on the species. Now, this species that you see next to me here are bamboo sharks. Now, bamboo sharks, we actually have in our Shark Lagoon touch pool, and you can come to the aquarium and actually touch them with 2 fingers when the aquarium's open and you're in town. So check out the bamboo sharks right here. So very small. They only grow to be about 3.5 feet long. So they don't grow to be very large sharks. So another question was, are sea otters prey or predators? The answer to that is actually both. They are a very important predator that keeps those sea urchin populations in check. And they also feed on other prey like sea stars, crabs, things like that, other invertebrates. But they can also be prey to other animals. They're pretty much the top of the food chain. But these animals right here, do you recognize them? Yeah, orcas or killer whales, they have been known to prey on sea otters. And sometimes even in their younger stages, or if they come out of the water, animals on land could even prey on them, like even bears or coyotes. But the biggest threat to sea otters right now is actually people. So how big can a shark get was the other question. Well, a shark can actually, even though they can be as small as 3.5 feet, they can grow to be as large as 50 feet or even longer than that. The largest shark we have is, or not that we have, but in the oceans, the largest shark in the oceans is the whale shark. So this animal can get longer than 50 feet, which is pretty big. So it's kind of like the length of a school bus. So it's pretty big animal there. Let's see, are there any other questions that we should be answering now? Okay, so the question was, how do crabs eat? And we have a video of one of our spider crabs here at the aquarium doing just that. So if you look at where the mouth of a crab is, it's actually right up here. It looks a little bit different. So he's going to grab, here we go. Right there. Here we have a better picture. You're looking at that area. And they have a mouth that's kind of up and down. That moves kind of sideways. So it looks a little bit different. They kind of rub their... they rub their little things together. I'm trying to think of the right word. But yes, they grab their food, they bring it up to their mouth, and they have like these special little feeding feet, kind of, that help them to grab and eat their prey. So there's a picture of a crab that was eating, and its funny looking mouth. It does look a lot different than our mouths or some of the mouths of the other animals that we've seen. So basically, they're chewing with their arms. So there you go. All right. Well, I think we need to be leaving now. But thank you so much for joining us. I'm sorry it took a while for us to get the comment section working. But I hope you enjoyed your little visit to the Aquarium of the Pacific. And we hope that you'll join us for another online field trip in a little while. So thank you for joining us and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.